How well do you know your cars? I mean, what if someone were to walk up to you to inform you that some of your favorite luxury cars, like the likes of Porsche, Lamborghini, Bentley, Bugatti, and Audi, are all cars under the Volkswagen banner? Would you contest that? Well, if you would, you clearly do not know enough about Volkswagen, so this video is for you. Much more than this, in this video, we get to dive into the history of Volkswagen. This would include how Volkswagen started, why it started, and how it has been able to survive for this long. Spoiler alert, the history of Volkswagen is one you wouldn't have guessed. It involves two men with dreams, one man whose dream depends on another. And one of these men is an infamous German revered and notorious figure. Before the time, there was Volkswagen. The start of what would turn into a multi-million-dollar idea began way back in the 1900s. At the top of the chain of events is a man named Ferdinand Porsche. Ferdinand had a natural talent for automobile design since he was a child, and as a teenager, while the rest of his age peers were out making merry, Ferdinand designed the first front-wheel drive car. The design in question garnered him a lot of attention and awards. During World War I, Ferdinand worked on aircraft engines in addition to automobiles. In the United States, Henry Ford introduced the Ford Model T to his first gasoline-powered horseless carriage, the quadricycle, as well as revolutionary new mass production methods such as large production plants, the use of standardized interchangeable parts, and the world's first moving assembly line for automobiles in 1913, had a significant influence on Ferdinand. Ferdinand hoped to achieve the same thing Ford had been able to achieve in Europe. He'd been working on the idea of creating an affordable car that could seat a family and drive like a real car, not a microcar, for years. This was quite unusual given the era Ferdinand was born in. At this time, it was normal to see many automakers design a small two-seater car with an extremely underpowered engine and market it to the average consumer while only selling their higher-end models to the elite. This meant only the elite rich had a chance to own an automobile. His design was straightforward and was supposed to kick his idea of an affordable and more spacious car to the world. It was a small car with a Beetle-shaped rear engine for better aerodynamics. The Beetle. You were right to think of the Volkswagen Beetle. So how was Ferdinand able to take his dream from being an object of his imagination to a car model that would outlive his existence? This is where our infamous German comes into the scene. The impact of Adolf Hitler in the furtherance of Volkswagen. Ferdinand Porsche designed the car we all know and love today, the Volkswagen Beetle. Being the man after his dreams, Ferdinand tried to pitch the idea of his car design to many Europeans but was turned down almost immediately. In his words, they practically laughed him out the door at every turn. The constant rejection pushed Ferdinand to start his own company, Porsche. They began by working on projects for other manufacturers, but he was unable to find anyone willing to fund his small car project, which was the main reason why Ferdinand created the company, to begin with, at least until a friend introduced him to Germany's chancellor at the time, Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler today is known as a notoriously reviled German Nazi leader. But many are oblivious that one of their most loved car brands exists only as a result of Hitler's involvement. Hitler grew up in a regular average family, and when his father retired from his position as a state customs officer, coupled with the problems he had in remaining in high school, he decided to drop out since he didn't want to become a public servant like his father. He took an interest in art but was turned away by Vienna's Academy of Fine Arts. Following the death of both of his parents, Adolf Hitler found a living by painting and selling landscapes and architecture, and it was during this time he developed a passion for politics and many of the theories that define his doctrine of the Nazi ideology. You might dislike him and his practices, but it is just impossible to dislike the product of his hands being Volkswagen. The coming years would be one that would show Hitler as a ruthless and determined leader of his ideology. Hitler felt the need to create something even bigger now that he had established his political desires. He needed to start his own car company. Interestingly, despite his love for cars, rumors have it that Hitler himself never learned to drive. Because German automakers were primarily interested in producing luxury vehicles during the 1930s, only 1 out of every 50 Germans owned a car. At the time, an immediate project under Adolf Hitler's command served as the forerunner to the company that would eventually become Volkswagen. The Nazis and Volkswagen. In 1937, the Nazi trade union organization, the Deutsche Arbeitsfront, set up Volkswagen to create a people's car. In Germany at the time, very few people owned cars, so VW was founded to address the need for an affordable car for the average German citizen. According to Hitler's specifications, the car should be able to transport 2 adults and 3 children at 100 km per hour and also be cheap, costing no more than a motorcycle. This was 990 Reichsmark and was available to all Third Reich citizens through a savings scheme. The very first variation of the German people's car was nicknamed Beetle because of its unusual form. On January 17, 1934, Ferdinand Porsche submitted the Beetle drawings to the Reich Chancellery of Germany as the Volkswagen prototype. 6 months later, in June, a contract was signed between the RDA and Dr. Ing. HCF, Porsche GmbH, Ferdinand Porsche's company, for the development of 3 Volkswagen prototypes based on the Porsche TYP60. While the Beetle was not a popular vehicle at first, it grew in popularity and recognition around the world, eventually becoming one of the best-selling vehicles in history. Volkswagen had enough cash on hand thanks to the success of their Beetle and Type 2 bus by 1965, and things were looking up for the company. The Passat Golf and Polo series were also very popular with their customers and helped to broaden their audience. The Golf GTI became well known among racers as a car that could be highly customized to each individual's preferences. The Type 2 bus also appeared to have many iterations as it gradually gained a growing consumer base. Families loved taking these minivans on their tracks and weekend getaways because they could be customized to their specific needs, making many feel like they were carrying a small part of their home. Volkswagen became a household name as a result of this. The days of trials. The most notable scandal that Volkswagen AG has faced in recent times is the emissions scandal that led to the group announcing its first quarterly loss in 15 years. In September 2015, U.S. authorities discovered software designed to cheat emissions testing in some Volkswagen and Audi models. These so-called defeat devices were used to manipulate the results of strict emissions testing in the United States. They designed it so that the car would recognize it was being tested and switch the engine to a different mode, lowering its emissions. This meant that the nitrogen oxide pollutants emitted by these VW engines were up to 40 times higher than the legal limit in the United States. It was also discovered that this was the case for a large number of cars in the UK and Europe. VW admitted that the illegal software was in 11 million cars. 8.5 million of these cars came from Europe. In the end, VW AG agreed to pay £11.8 billion to its customers and regulators as compensation for the scandal. Volkswagen today. Volkswagen AG purchased the company Audi from the concern Daimler-Benz in 1965, forming the Volkswagen Audi Group, abbreviated VAG. Later, it was joined by the Spanish firm Seat and the Czech firm Skoda. Audi AG is now a wholly owned subsidiary of Volkswagen AG, with complete autonomy. This was how Volkswagen continued acquiring car companies, even Porsche, in 2012. In recent standing, Volkswagen owns 12 subsidiaries of automobiles. This includes Volkswagen passenger cars, Audi, Seat, and Skoda, luxury brands such as Bentley, Bugatti, Lamborghini, Porsche, and Ducati, as well as Volkswagen commercial vehicles, Scania, and MAN. The post-war existence of Volkswagen, which allowed it to grow into what it has become today, is largely attributed to the initiative of a British Army Major, Ivan Hurst, who saved it from being dismantled and sold off after World War II as part of war reparations. In retrospect, Volkswagen is a long way from its origins. It has come a long way from what the Nazi leader, Adolf Hitler, envisioned to enable German families to own their first car. the least expensive car you would get from the Volkswagen AG and its subsidiaries would fall just a bit below $40,000 depending on the model compared to the 1,000 Reichsmarks that Adolf intended to begin with. Today, Volkswagen AG comprises 122 production plants, employing more than 660,000 employees in 153 countries with an estimated net worth of €15.428 billion as of 2021, and total assets estimated at €528.609 billion.